Episode 20. Time notices them. The moment time noticed them, it did not rush. That was the mistake everyone would later admit to making. They expected retaliation, correction, collapse, something loud enough to justify fear. Instead, the city entered a state of restraint so precise it felt intentional, like a held breath that had been practiced. Ethan felt it while standing on the rooftop, watching the skyline glow unevenly. Buildings did not darken. Streets did not empty. Life continued with just enough friction to feel wrong. Time had stopped drifting. It was paying attention. The pressure that had once pressed behind Ethan's eyes no longer felt distant or abstract. It had weight now, direction. It felt like standing beneath something enormous that had finally lowered its gaze. Claire broke the silence first. "Do you feel that?" Ethan nodded. "It's not searching anymore." The girl stood a few steps away, staring at the city as if she were reading a language written into the lights themselves. "It found what it was looking for," she said. The pressure tightened slightly, acknowledging the accuracy. Across the city, the watchers noticed the change before the public did. Private monitoring rooms lit up with alerts that made no sense together. Prediction models stopped converging. Confidence intervals widened instead of narrowing. Systems designed to anticipate the minute began disagreeing with each other. Not because of error, because the input had changed. One analyst leaned closer to his screen and whispered something that never appeared in the logs. "It's reacting." Ethan's phone vibrated. Unknown number. External observation acknowledged. He stared at the message longer than usual. "You see them now," he typed. The reply did not come immediately. When it did, it felt deliberate. "They are intrusive." Ethan swallowed. "They're trying to own you." A long pause followed. Then, "They are attempting to define me." The sentence carried something new. Offense. At 8:41 p.m., the missing minute arrived. Not where it usually did. Not when it was expected. It arrived everywhere just enough to be felt. The city bent. Cars slowed without stopping. Voices stretched mid-sentence. Footsteps echoed longer than physics allowed. Digital displays blurred, not from malfunction, but from disagreement. Ethan remained conscious. So did Claire. So did the girl. "This isn't isolation," Claire whispered. "No," Ethan said. "This is inclusion." The pressure surged, focused and heavy. Time was not excluding them anymore. It was drawing them inside. Ethan felt something open behind his eyes. Not pain, not fear. Access. Memory poured in, but not his own. A boy in a classroom stepping forward when the bell rang. A girl on a stairwell glancing back one last time. A street that curved away from a house that no longer existed. Parents smiling in a photo that had been edited by reality itself. These moments were not erased. They were preserved, folded inward, held. Claire gasped softly. "I see them," she said. The girl closed her eyes, trembling. This is why it hurts to remember. Because memory is brushing against something that still exists. Ethan's voice came out barely above a whisper. "They didn't vanish." The pressure eased slightly. Confirmation. "They were moved," Ethan continued. "Stored somewhere sequence doesn't reach." The girl nodded. "The missing minute isn't a hole. It's a corridor," Ethan said. Across the city, the watchers saw their models break. Data that should not align began forming shapes. Absences repeated with geometry. Gaps mirrored each other across unrelated systems. One supervisor stared at the screen in silence. "It's not noise," he said finally. Another replied, unsettled. "Then what is it?" Neither answered, because the truth did not fit inside their frameworks. Ethan's phone vibrated again. Unknown number. Containment space exposed. His hands shook as he typed. "You showed us." A pause. Then, "You forced perception." Ethan nodded slowly. "Because you were hiding something." The reply took longer than ever before. When it arrived, it felt careful. Because exposure creates panic. Ethan exhaled. "No. Creates resistance." The pressure surged sharply. Agreement. The minute began to contract. Not violently, intentionally, like a door closing slowly, giving just enough time to understand what lay behind it. Ethan felt the connection slipping. "Wait," he said aloud instinctively. The pressure hesitated. Time paused. "You don't want them controlling what's inside," Ethan said, voice steady now. "They would turn it into data, into leverage." The pressure tightened. "Yes," the girl said softly. "They think the minute is a defect. But it's a system," Claire added. "A system that protects something," Ethan said. The pressure steadied. Below them, cameras across the city glitched simultaneously. Not shut down. Misaligned. Private systems flooded with contradictions they could not resolve. The watchers shouted orders that did nothing. Time withdrew cooperation. The minute ended. Not cleanly, but deliberately. The air thinned. Sound returned. Motion resumed. But the city did not reset. Something fundamental had changed. The pressure did not vanish. It settled. Time was no longer hiding. Ethan dropped to his knees, breathing hard. Claire knelt beside him, grounding him. The girl remained standing, eyes fixed on the skyline. "Now we know," she said. "Know what?" Claire asked. The girl answered carefully. "The missing minute is not empty." Ethan looked up. "It's full," he said. The pressure pulsed softly. Agreement. The city resumed movement, but it did not return to normal. Normal was a privilege of ignorance. Ethan felt it immediately as he stood, legs unsteady, the pressure no longer pressing but present. It was like standing beside a massive river that had always been there, unheard only because no one had listened closely enough. Time was no longer hiding. It was aware. Claire was the first to speak. "If they're still alive," she said carefully, "then why can't we reach them?" Ethan did not answer right away. He was still sorting through what he had seen inside the minute. Not images alone, but structure, layers, relationships. "They're not unreachable," he said finally. "They're misaligned." The girl turned toward him slowly. "Explain." "They're not missing from space," Ethan said. "They're missing from sequence." The pressure pulsed once, low and deliberate. Approval. The truth settled in pieces. Time did not erase what broke its rules. It relocated it. Anything that could not be reconciled with continuity, anything that threatened predictability, anything that introduced too much uncertainty was not destroyed. It was folded inward, compressed into a space where cause did not immediately produce effect. A buffer, a reservoir, a pattern space. "That's why the city keeps optimizing," Claire said softly. "It's trying to reduce how much it has to store." "Yes," Ethan replied. "Efficiency isn't about progress. It's about minimizing exceptions." The girl closed her eyes briefly. "And the watchers?" "They saw the buffer," Ethan said, "but not the cost." The pressure tightened slightly. Time did not forgive curiosity that ignored consequence. Across the city, the watchers were losing control. Private dashboards filled with contradictions. The same location reported 3 different times within seconds of each other. Predictive models that once converged now scattered wildly, like compasses near a magnetic storm. One supervisor slammed his hand on a console. "Stabilize the feed." An analyst shook his head. "It won't hold. It's reorganizing." "What is?" the supervisor demanded. The analyst swallowed. "Time." Ethan's phone vibrated again. Unknown number. External systems no longer aligned. He typed slowly. "Because you exposed the buffer." A pause. Then, "Because observation changed priority." Ethan frowned. "Priority of what?" The reply took longer than usual. Then, "Protection." The word lingered. Time was not defending itself. It was defending what it held. The city lights dimmed briefly, not as a blackout, but as a recalibration. Entire neighborhoods slipped into a softer glow, as if reality itself were lowering its voice. People noticed. Some stopped walking. Some looked at the sky. Some felt a sudden sadness they could not explain. Memory was brushing against alignment. Claire shivered. "I feel like I'm about to remember something I never knew." Ethan nodded. Because the pattern is close. The girl turned sharply. You see it now, don't you? Ethan looked at the notebook lying open on the concrete beside him. The shapes he had drawn were no longer guesses. They were confirmations. Yes, he said. The gaps aren't random. They never were, the girl replied. They form a lattice, Ethan continued. A structure that repeats at different scales. Streets, minutes, people. The pressure pulsed again. Stronger. Time was listening. And now it was responding. At 11:59 p.m., the minute arrived again. Not missing. Not displaced. Revealed. The air thickened, but did not freeze. Sound dimmed, but did not vanish. The city existed in suspension, like a held cord that refused to resolve. Ethan felt himself pulled inward, not physically, but conceptually. The buffer opened. He saw it clearly this time, not as chaos, as architecture, corridors of stalled moments, rooms built from paused decisions, layers of memory stacked without decay. People were there, not moving forward, not aging, but not dead, waiting inside a logic that did not demand progression. A child stood near a door that never opened. A woman sat on a staircase that never reached a landing. A street ended in a curve that led nowhere and everywhere at once. This was not punishment. This was containment. Claire gasped beside him. They're aware, she whispered. They know they're waiting. Yes, Ethan said. But they don't know for what. The girl's voice was tight. And if this space collapses? Ethan swallowed. Then continuity absorbs what it cannot reconcile. The pressure tightened sharply. Danger acknowledged. Outside the buffer, the watchers made their final mistake. They tried to intervene. A directive went out across private systems. Cameras locked. Predictive engines forced alignment. A containment protocol initiated, designed to isolate the anomaly permanently. They attempted to seal the minute. Time reacted instantly. The city lurched. Not violently, decisively. Cameras across the skyline lost signal simultaneously. Not powered down. Disconnected. Private feeds went dark. Data streams collapsed into noise. The watchers shouted commands that no longer reached anything. Time withdrew access. Ethan's phone vibrated. Unknown number. External interference rejected. He typed quickly. You chose. A pause. Then, I adapted. The sentence carried finality. Time was no longer neutral. The buffer began to close. Not completely, but deliberately. The pattern tightened, like a fist forming around something fragile. Ethan felt the connection slipping again. This is it, the girl said quietly. If the pattern seals, they stay there. And if it breaks? Claire asked. Ethan did not answer immediately. Then everything floods back, he said. At once. The pressure surged. Risk acknowledged. Ethan stepped forward instinctively. You don't have to hide them forever, he said aloud, not caring who heard. You just need balance. The pressure hesitated. Time paused. Balance was a concept it understood. For a heartbeat, the city existed between decisions. Then time made one. The buffer did not collapse. It stabilized. Not sealed. Not open. Accessible. Conditionally. The minute ended. Cleanly. The city exhaled. Lights returned to normal. Sounds resumed. Motion continued. But something irreversible had occurred. Time had chosen preservation over optimization. Ethan sank back against the ledge, exhausted. Claire held his hand tightly. The girl looked out over the city, her expression unreadable. This isn't over, she said. No, Ethan agreed. It's just structured now. Later that night, Ethan returned to his notebook. He did not write rules. He did not draw warnings. He drew the pattern, a repeating geometry of gaps, minutes, and memories. When he finished, the design was unmistakable. This is a map, Claire said softly. Yes, Ethan replied, but not of the city. The girl nodded. Of where time puts what it can't control. Ethan closed the notebook. Outside, a single streetlight flickered, then stabilized. Not a glitch, a signal. The pressure hovered nearby, calm and observant. Time was no longer hunting blindly. It was curating. Ethan spoke the truth aloud, the one that would define what came next. The missing minute is not empty, he said. It's organized. The pressure pulsed once. Final agreement.